Don't drink too much of that stuff. It's pretty intense.
Okay, so episode 2, Harvesting the Sun, Rooted in Trust podcast. How are we feeling?
Take one. I'm ready.
This is take one. Alright, so what would you say in the past couple weeks has been a theme for you within the solar industry? There's been a lot of craziness recently. What's been on your mind?
Well, the word that first comes to mind is resilience. We have a resilient industry. We've been a resilient company, and we've been a resilient foundation. So we could focus on a lot of the negatives of bad federal policy, which there's been plenty of that. But at the end of the day, solar is going to win the day with storage, even more so. And we've seen dramatic drops in prices of storage. So you have to pivot to where there's space and opportunity. So there are holes in the front line to run through, to use a football analogy on the pivot. And I think we're running as fast as we can, trying to share information in our nuclear team as a company, but then with other industry allies. And that word resilience just keeps coming back. It's kind of foolish not to pursue the lowest cost of power energy at a time of tremendous energy demand increase. So the demonization of solar as a foreign invasion is really very sad, because that doesn't have to be the storyline, and it shouldn't be the storyline. So we're advancing where we can and addressing the adversities that come up the best we can. That has always been part of the 16-year history of this effort.
Yeah, when you say the word resilience, it makes me think of RE+, and although I wasn't there, a decent amount of our team was, and that was a through line that they felt. It's different to hear something versus feel something within the industry, and it's definitely important in these unprecedented times of our culture.
I've been thinking of another word that came out earlier in the year when we were in Denver at the Wood Mackenzie conference, where we had a panel about Let's Share the Sun. And Chris is one of the top authorities at Wood Mackenzie. He always gets keynote speeches, and he identified the word of the year as whiplash, which we certainly felt some of that whiplash. But I think by RE+, just a few months later, a word like resilience is the right word, because it's not like we're keeling over and dying as an industry. We are a resilient community, and an intelligent community, and a hard-working community. And so I think we will prevail even if we have to do some unexpected pivots, and that's what we're in the middle of.
For sure. What would you say has been a highlight in pivoting, right? I think there's been a decent amount of focus within the past few months on different areas within our business. What would you say the highlight of focus is within the past few months?
Well, we have this large United Power project that came to us because the farmer landowner really trusted us, and that is a very encouraging progress there. That project can fit through the eye of the needle to shorten timelines that the budget bill created. It still makes that viable and very appealing to a lot of people in the marketplace. I think we went, you and I, to Chicago as well, to the Solar Farm Summit, where I was expecting a half-dejected crowd, but it was amazing to see thousands of people energetic and enthusiastic about both solar and agricultural production being able to improve and be synergistic with each other, not in opposition or in tension with each other. So that gives me hope as we get into some of our first agrivoltaic projects. Mm-hmm. And I think people's participation in the process. We've had frozen REAP grants, the fact that farmers would call their congressional representatives and say, hey, this isn't, what I voted for. And if you don't become more servicial, we will vote you out of office. So that gives me hope. It's going to be a challenging time on the federal front for a little while longer, but like I've come to say many times to you, democracy doesn't work unless you participate in it. So what are our most intelligent participations? And then sticking to your core competency in knitting, there's still lots of farmers that are going to put solar on around their farm, and keep on doing that well. And we'll have new markets. We've had some new agreements signed, so we have a partnership now with American Farmland Trust. We have a partnership with the New York Wine and Grape Foundation. These are just a couple of the new ones to add to the historical ones. And, we're very faithful to those organizations when we make a commitment to them. So I had calls just today with American Farmland Trust and new farmers for us, and I'm very optimistic those will go forward.
Yeah, talk to me about that American Farmland Trust and that kind of core value that's within doing solar in ways that strengthen family farms and also strengthen our society by not taking away prime farmland. I mean, you gave two examples of United, right, with John Mosier and his non-prime farmland being used in this case, and we also talked about the Solar Farm Summit in Chicago, where we're bringing into the picture agrivoltaics, and there's exciting projects on that front with the Peach Orchard in Colorado, Talbot Farms. So yeah, talk to me about that dynamic of different discussions you've had through the years with farmers on the topic of not using prime farmland and your perspective on it.
Our core value is doing solar in ways that strengthens family farms. American Farmland Trust core value is farmland preservation, so prime farmland preservation. Their bumper sticker says it in a different way, but it's the same thing: no farms, no food. And so if you can merge those with their smart solar program, which is relatively new but going like gangbusters, you align with the values, and then execution is the key, is being able to deliver for the farmers and the farm businesses, the food businesses that are attracted to that common vision and core values. And so that's part of what happened in this initial conversation with the new customer today. It was like, it's a half-hour conversation, but we know they're going forward in our hearts because you've already kind of captured that you're in alignment on values. And so when you can do that with other organizations, that's when you're probably most fulfilling part of the work. And you said a handful, but it was about that partnership to begin with. I think in addition, some of the same conversations that have been going on for years in other subsets of the agriculture sector are just, taking on new life. I think another point of tremendous hope for me that is related to the United and other projects of ours is, I want to maybe quote Jigger Shaw from our industry. A lot of people know him, but he says we're a storage industry now where solar just happens to be the generation. And fortunately, some of the policy decisions that were made left a longer timeline, for example, for the investment tax credit on storage. And you have states like California where it really is storage first because there's enough solar on the grid that you can put solar and pair it with the storage. But the storage is getting at that demand charge. It's getting at the intermittency issues. It's getting at a lot of other factors that peak shaving that can lower the cost of power and move us more rapidly towards energy independence. So we prioritize the FIOC criteria. That means that you want to get the equipment from U.S. manufacturers. There are a lot fewer of those than Chinese, but as we've talked about in the story of the tour of the solar panel manufacturing facility, taxpayers from the United States and from Germany paid to develop most all of this technology, and the German that said it said, and politicians from both of our countries handed the market to China. So we need to take back that market. Those first panels were developed at Bell Labs in New Jersey, and we should be manufacturing more of all of the equipment. So I think we've gotten some good starts in that direction, but there's a lot of jobs yet to go, and we want to help create them by buying from them.
For sure. My mind went to a conversation we had with George Hunt not too long ago on the topic of how solar impacts farms, and I was actually listening to that 40-minute interview that we did on the way to farm at Miller's Crossing to get the CSA, and was laughing a few times because of his Massachusetts accent and being so thick and strong, but his message was really strong. I want to play that video right now, and then maybe we can talk about your reaction to it and our collective reaction to it.
Not the whole 4 minutes, right? 5 minutes, 3 minutes?
That's a short clip. Okay.
I love listening to George, so I'm not complaining.
Well, again, primarily I'm motivated by the money, by the income that can be generated from the electric revenue, and I'm willing to sacrifice some of the convenience or ease of farming in a field without any obstructions in lieu of the income. I've come to terms with it this way, saying, well, if the solar gets 75% of what they could, and farming I could get 75% of what I could, that's 150%, which is better than if the field was 100% solar or 100% farming. I'm still better off if I share it that way. They'll have to pay attention going between the rows. We'll have to focus around the impediments, but everything has a cost, and I really believe from the numbers I've seen that it's going to be worth the extra effort.
So George started that with talking about how for him it really came down to the money and the bottom line economics of how solar impacts his electricity bill, and for him has brought in revenue streams. Talk to me about that. How have you seen the economics be the decision factor for farmers more than anything else?
Yeah, I mean, when we say a core value is that we do solar in ways that strengthens family farms, it's pretty common knowledge that most farms are not getting, the money that they should for their efforts. And so, call it the short end of the stick economically. Part of strengthening family farms is improving their economics. So if you think about that in relationship to electricity, they, like most of us in society, before this phenomenon of solar started up, were totally beholden to the regulated monopolies of the utilities. Mm-hmm. And there was a reason to create those utilities, because a common good of society was to have reliable electricity. But the regulated monopoly also led to outsized margins for those utilities, with consumers not having a lot of options. So when the former Secretary of Agriculture, Tom Vilsack, said many times in his tenure, the farmer of the future is both a food producer and an energy producer, this is all about the money. The environment is important, no mistake, but if I have a top 10 cost of production is electricity, where I have no control over the cost, and I invest to have not only control of the cost, reduction of the cost, and the ability to have it be a revenue generator for me, you're doing not just becoming your own power company, you're becoming an energy producer that's worked with the sun for generations to produce food, and you're strengthening the economics of the family farm. Hundreds of thousands of farms have gone out of business since the 1980s in our country. Average farm size has increased. We still have a diversity of small, medium, and large farms, but who would argue with the premise that if they can generate their own electricity, lower a cost, and create a new diversified revenue stream, that they shouldn't do it? I want to see farmers doing better by getting more money for the food that they produce, which they deserve, and by getting savings and money from producing clean energy.
For sure. And I mean, I love his simple math of 75% plus 75% equals 150 in regards to doing agrivoltaics. And there's there's a lot to that right now, right? There's a lot of unknown when it comes to agrivoltaics, specifically in regards to something that has been a key for us within the REAP grant, right? We've heard news on not, requirements of a maximum of 50 kilowatts on land within farming. Does that, mean agrivoltaics is in the picture within that? Or is it, going to be a reality that a policy is not in the best service of that specific farm? I mean,
Yeah, well, the current administration's assertion is we want to protect prime farmland, which I believe agrivoltaic addresses that. And in fact, consider the cattle operation in Nebraska where we did get them a REAP grant, and they're valuing the canopy, in their feedlot, and they value the value of the shade more than the kilowatt hours for the finishing of their animal meat. That's pretty impactful to have actually a dollar value associated with shade in a very hot and humid part of Nebraska. So it's an enhancement of that family farm. And that family farm is going to do better, and it's going to save on electricity. It's going to have better quality product that's going to have value. Now that's different than other types of agrivoltaics like the peach orchard, or we could talk about all sorts of different types of agrivoltaics. It's very early on, so it's very broadly defined.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that I, in the past couple weeks, I've really been attuned to is the different documentaries and different messaging that's been putting out within, our society and specifically our industry. I've watched it 3 times now. We've watched it together. The Light Won't Dim. And it's a really inspiring documentary. I think that shines or illuminates truth within our industry and how solar can impact society in general in a extremely positive way. And it led me to buy you that book, Here Comes the Sun, and you being the bookworm that you are, obviously read through that pretty quick.
No.
But
yeah, this is a great book. Bill McKibben, I haven't read any of his other books. He's written extensively. I know of his work. He's been a renewable energy activist for decades, and I think as dire as some of the analysis is, I think it's a message of optimism that solar is going to win the day.
Yeah.
In our current reality. We might have hydrogen 50 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, but we have such a level of need for this lower power that it really is consistent with the Let's Share the Sun vision, the Jordan Energy vision, that we have a time ahead of abundance by lowering the price of power and making it abundantly available to all in society. And in the midst of huge spikes in demand, we take energy from a framework of scarcity where those that have access to fossil fuel products primarily, but others as well, make a lot of money. Those that make this shift and help to lead it are going to do very well financially, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like the IT revolution. What did that do? Mm-hmm. It made what was relatively scarce information, few people held it, abundant, so that you have much more information coming through that laptop or this cell phone than the old IBM mainframes, before the personal computer. So we are in a time of tremendous innovation. The United States still has time to lead, but we got to change how we're doing things in the energy sector, and it isn't a competition. There's market share for natural gas to be gained. There's market share for some of the fossil fuels. We need a smooth transition, but in reality, when we started this effort 16 years ago, I knew that the transition was going to have a time of volatility. Mm-hmm. As ridiculous as the policy decisions seem that are being made now, they're like that last gasp of volatility before the fossil fuel companies, and there's plenty of them have already started to do this, say, like the utilities, if you can't beat them, join them.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a role for them to play. I don't want to be a guy or a company or a movement that's throwing Molotov cocktails at an opposition as much as saying, we need you guys to change so we can have a healthy planet, and everybody will do better in that abundance. Even if your margins might reduce a little bit in the transition and you lose some market share.
For sure. Yeah, it's when you started that, I don't want to call it a rant. When you started talking there,
You can call it a rant. Some more of your mate.
You talked about recognizing the industry and its path kind of at the beginning, and that really came with Solar Revolution, reading that book, right?
Solar Revolution, I gave away my last copy, but that was key. 2006, MIT Press, Travis Bradford, he nailed the analysis that convinced me that this was going to happen faster than most people thought. So it took a while, 2009, until our first install, but we're still at the early days, 16 years later, of what lies ahead of us in terms of here comes the sun. It is coming, and it's not going to disappear, and if it does, we're in real trouble. But I think the market share will go to the sun as battery storage prices decrease, so we'll be complemented to address the intermittency. Yeah, and I'm optimistic despite the aspects of adversity and whiplash that we're showing our resilience to now.
For sure, especially with transformations within our grid, right? There's energy revolution or renaissance per se happening currently, and the amount of power that's being desired from data centers and shifting dynamics, which I have my own personal perspectives on that of building these huge supercomputers and taking up a bunch of nature, but to that point, right, it's happening, and how do we put that amount of power on the grid that fast, right?
It can happen one panel at a time. One of the examples
and storage,
in the book that
key.
you'll like is Pakistan turned their broken grid around just by people putting one panel on their balcony.
Yeah.
And those panels are being produced. How many of them get produced in our country is a valid question, and we have been dragging our feet, but we have some good news stories that we can build upon. But it's going to happen, in Haiti after the earthquake. And we had these big conference calls, 15 people on a conference call, all of them wanting to help. Some of the not so renewables oriented saying what we need is a grid in Haiti. And my allies in the solar side of things wanted to argue about it. I said, don't even argue about it. We debriefed after the call. I said, by the time there's a functioning grid in Haiti, solar will be everywhere. You're seeing that happen today in Puerto Rico. Mm-hmm. Puerto Rico has a grid that's still not functioning well. All of these policy conversations, hiring Luma, people are just adopting solar because they want reliable energy. And solar with a couple of batteries creates that reliability, and then the game's going to be over at some point, because at some point the storage is going to get so inexpensive that you will say, I don't even need this grid, and the utilities will have to demonstrate their value by changing the way they do business to address current realities and not it's same old, same old.
Yeah, and especially in Puerto Rico, you feel it on that topic of energy independence, right? And, the connection with Casa Pueblo and, that community of Adjuntas, it's very apparent, right? And
yeah, I was on their balcony at Casa Pueblo with Arturo, and it says, we feel very glad as Let's Share the Sun to partner with Casa Pueblo because there's very few places, and this was a couple of years ago, that have the vision of going entirely solar. It's going to happen in this community that was 21,000 people before Hurricane Maria, dropped down to about 17,000, but Adjuntas is going 100% solar, and Casa Pueblo has been at the lead. We've made our contributions, other people have as well. I said to them, this is going to be replicated in a lot of the rest of the world where they're maybe short on financial resources or other aspects that are considered poverty alleviation needs, to energy independence. I don't need a grid that takes the majority of my money out of my pocket. I want an energy source that's going to enhance my life and give me some of that independence. So yeah, you start with a 5-watt panel with a LED light that has a plug to recharge your cell phone. I've heard different numbers. I think it's down the lowest. I think Jigger said the other day 700 million people. When we started Jordan Energy and Let's Share the Sun, there were 1.5 billion people without electricity. Population has increased, and the number of people without minimal access to electricity has actually reduced. Those 700 million people deserve to have a cheap source of clean energy, and they will. It's kind of like how the cell phones got into those people's hands. So there's a lot of exciting components to what's happening right now. We're trying to live the happiest, most fulfilled life that we can while facilitating this transformation.
Yeah, in that transformation, I see a key within that being, people stepping up into the spotlight as leaders on these topics and, connecting not just on the news or on a screen or whatnot, but in person with people, right? Face to face. And I was talking about that with Greg from AFT, on the sense of wanting to empower and inspire our community, our past customers of farmers to go, to those community meetings and talk about how it's impacted their farm, talk about how it's impacted them. And, there's that book right there, The Death of Truth. And, it's, been a hard read for me because it's, a hard reality that we're living in right now where you don't know what to believe, you don't know who to believe, you get all these different, insights from people. There's obviously, I would say there's very strong-minded people on both sides that kind of dissuade the middle from putting forward their perspective and putting forward their truth and speaking on that. And now more than ever, we need those centrist voices, right? I mean, currently we're shut down as a government, and that comes from not being able to negotiate and communicate. But it's not just the government that's shut down. I mean, there's, what you feel and see through social media, people going back and forth. But I think that truth aspect is a big one to talk about and reflect on and, talk through. It's
I mean, at the end of the day, solar should be the ultimate bipartisan topic that brings people together. Why isn't it? Because there's some volatility. People feel threatened that they've been making a lot of money in the fossil fuel industry. But if Saudi Arabia is embracing solar wholeheartedly and they see the future, those fossil fuel companies that are inclined towards the polarization, they just need to get over it. And I mean, Carolyn Wu is a very close friend of ours. She helped organize 3 or 4 meetings for Pope Francis with the CEOs of the fossil fuel companies. And her perspective, I agree with. You can be the elder statesman of this transition. You don't have to keep the polarization getting exacerbated. Our world needs this, and if you adopt it quickly, or sooner rather than later, you will be part of the solution, and your business will evolve and improve. You might have a down quarter or two, but it's so short term to say, oh, we got plenty of oil and natural gas on the planet to keep doing business as we've done forever, when you have a less costly alternative that is in the supposedly free market that could and should take market share over time. So why turn it into a polemical issue? I think we were a little bit naive going into this new administration. When we heard energy dominance, we were like, okay, we can work with that because we are, we got good prices. We got storage coming down rapidly, but it hasn't turned out that way in these first 8 or 9 months, and so we have to speak what we see as the truth and continue to conduct ourselves professionally to open up those doors towards transitions that in attitudes away from the polarization towards bringing people in our country and our world together.
Yeah, and it's one thing for us to put out this podcast as a brand, right? I mean, we have our name in the company, right? Jordan Energy. But I think that's also too a lot about inspiring people, you know, to speak their truth. And I think there's a lot to that, right? I think so often people don't want to hear about things a week later, 2 weeks later, right? They want to know now, and I know there's there can be so much out there that it's hard to digest, right? It's hard to know who to trust. So yeah, I want to push that foot forward for people to feel empowered and inspired to speak on it.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's tremendous value in the video interviews you're doing of customers of ours, because those are individuals, but they're also families. They're also part of communities. And we just had an experience, without naming the newspaper, where we have this great story of this dairy farm family's daughter from high school is going to lead a delegation with her high school friends to Puerto Rico. And it's a newspaper that could have helped that happen, but the editor rejected it. And he rejected it because he said, people read our newspaper and they click on the bad stories. They don't want to hear a good story about a high school student doing something. I mean, what does that say about our society where, I try to click on all the things when I spend time on my phone or on social media on the good news stories, and so that really impacted me. It's like, here's a great news story, not just a good news story, but we're not going to run it because people won't click on it. And maybe there's truth. He probably knows his demographic. He's probably gotten the surveys, and so he's trying to keep moving his newspaper forward. But what does it say if that's how we're inclined? Part of that has been that process of polarization where social media has gravitated people to that version of reality that they feel is correct without as much openness towards other perspectives, and that's a huge detriment to our democracy.
Without a doubt, no, that's definitely important. And yeah, what is a good story? It doesn't have to be on the solar front. It can be on the personal front, the family front that you've been around in the past couple weeks.
Well, there's a lot of great news stories. I think the first one that comes to mind is Mary Beth's grandmother. So Mary Beth's been with us for 16 years from the outset. Emily was a classmate of Bernadette's, and we're happy for her and Stefan in South Carolina. So at the end of the day, we are a family business with a broader sense of family with our full team than just our biological family. But we're so happy for Mary Beth will take a couple of weeks to be grandma now down there. And that's the best news story, new life. So that comes to mind.
Yeah, no, it's awesome to see her so happy on that front, right? It's she's definitely a workhorse, and
well, our team put together for a gift that she appreciated, and it was very genuine. It wasn't mandated by me as the owner of the company, but everybody loves Mary Beth, and that's a true statement for most, if not all, of our customers too.
Yeah, no, she's great at connecting first with them as a person, and yeah, I mean, I don't know anybody that works as hard as Mary Beth, maybe besides you, and you have a lot of travel coming up in this month of October. What are some highlights? I know that's going to be moving a lot, and some big things on the horizon for October.
Yeah, October's going to be a great month. I think I'll go out to United Power meetings at the beginning of this week in Colorado, and I will also then go to Puerto Rico, where we're thrilled that, like the Solar Energy Industry Association Board, the National Board of Catholic Charities USA is meeting in Puerto Rico. The chair of the board is a classmate of mine from Notre Dame, and another Notre Dame board member are going to go out with us to work on roofs for the day, see the work of Let's Share the Sun. So we hope for new partnerships there. And then, we have a fundraiser for Let's Share the Sun, a couple of them actually, a golf tournament with New Energy Equity. The Lift as We Climb golf tournament will raise significant funds for Let's Share the Sun work
Yeah.
in Maryland. And then Kevin Spahn, our good friend and classmate, has opened up his South Bend home for a fundraiser before the Notre Dame USC game, which should be a great fun. I'm, saddened but happy to be able to be present to the memorial service for my Aunt Alice. So we're grateful for our family relationships. And, in the case of the farm family history, Five Crowns and Majesty have just been wonderful. My cousins Bill and Joe and their team in doing solar with us. I know you interviewed Joe. So those are the times you need to be together as family, and looking forward to being able to do that. And then, the second half of October, I think we're focusing heavily on the United Power Project and the next steps there. So no complaints on my side. A little bit of travel, but no complaints.
Yeah, just a little, right? No, that first Joe Colas interview was one that really hit home, and yeah, that was the first one that really launched the continual nature of it, right? It's
Well, I compliment you. You're very good at doing interviews. You ask very good questions. You engage with the folks that are being interviewed, and you prepare well. You have good questions. So I think, like you said, the bookworm, not everybody likes to read a book, but in our day and age, a 30-second snippet of Joe Colas talking about the value of solar on the roof of their food processing facility in Northern California, it gets to a lot of people. And so I'm happy that we're expanding in that direction. You're doing great work.
appreciate that. Yeah, I definitely have seen the impact with the people, right? I've seen how genuine they are in this. It's not like a big production and smile for the camera type thing. It's
Right.
real conversations, and they always start with, what is your story about farming, right? It's everyone has a story, and these these farmers that we're going and working with are really profound people. So it's been awesome to be able to connect. on that
Yeah, I
front.
think that's been a differentiator. Our interest in their lives is very sincere and genuine.
Mhm.
We're not just the pushy salesman trying to sell a solar panel. I always think of how great I felt when our current Commissioner of Agriculture in New York State, Richard Ball, said, well, you're in totally different businesses. They're in the business of selling solar panels. Jordan Energy's in the relationship business, and they don't understand that that's totally different business. So yeah, if you put something that is guaranteed to work for 25 years on a person's farm, that's a long-term relationship. You just don't walk away from that. And so we've tried to be faithful to that. I think we've done a pretty good job, always moving from good to great, right?
That's the goal. That's the goal. Well, it's nice to slow down and have these conversations, and continue this pursuit of harvesting the sun while staying rooted in trust. And obviously there's big dreams for it, like a lot of my goals that we were reflecting upon with the yearly review. There's a lot of different goals, a lot of different people we want to talk with. There's plenty of interviews that we've done that we can highlight through this podcast, right? I would I would ask the question, who is somebody that you really would want to talk to on this topic of harvesting the sun, rooted in trust, and get on this podcast?
Yeah, well, I mean, one trip that I failed to mention that I'm excited about is down to Louisville for the United Egg Board. It's American Egg Board annual meetings, and we had Tom Puglisi on, to be present at his grandmother's wake, who we had the opportunity to meet. Both two of the three brothers, so Tom's uncle John and his dad Mike, we're just so grateful. His other uncle Paul has had some health issues, so he had already left the wake at that point when we came to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I would love to expand on Tom's perspectives with multi-generational dynamic. It's funny because everybody's personality is different.
Yeah.
And his dad Mike is very short and straight to the point. John is a good storyteller, so I don't know how we could maybe make that work. But I think eventually, getting in that dynamic of the multi-generational, kind of like we did with Lakewood,
Yeah.
with Chris Stamp and his son Ben. His daughter's in the business, but she's expecting a child, and he gave her no notice, and we were going to be filming, so she wouldn't get in front of the camera that day. But we go to these, lunches where we bring lunch. People appreciate just sitting and talking before the camera rolls. That we care about more than just the solar and its economics.
For sure. I know it's Friday, it's the end of the week, and you
Party.
No, you
No,
tend to
we
be
got-
pretty burnt out by the end of the week.
I haven't gotten angry at anybody, or at least I haven't shown it.
Well, I'm excited to cook some of the food from the CSA.
All right, let's get to it.
Have
Thanks.
To have a,
Great session. We're supposed to shake hands at the end of these, or what's the deal? Damn good, glad to know you.